The bishop has asked us to read this letter from him during the homily. Dear brothers and sisters of the Diocese of Lafayette, the third commandment of God obliges us to keep holy the Lord's Day. This commandment is fulfilled when we give God the most perfect worship possible, the worship of Jesus Christ himself in the holy sacrifice of the Mass. We also observe it by works of charity, spiritual reading, and refraining from unnecessary servile labor to spend time with family and loved ones. In this way, we give God the adoration that is his due, nourish our souls with the body and blood of Christ, and direct our lives to our eternal goal, life with God. This understanding is what we know as the obligation for Catholics to participate in Mass every Sunday. Because of the seriousness of the pandemic, the Sunday obligation was dispensed by me to comply with safety directives recommended by health authorities. Now that conditions have improved, people more frequently shop, socialize, go to gyms, and participate in other activities outside their homes. The time has come to also observe the Lord's Day by assisting at Mass on Sundays. I am therefore lifting the dispensation from Sunday obligation in the Diocese of Lafayette, beginning on June 6th, 2021, the feast of Corpus Christi. All Catholics will be seriously obligated to assist at Mass on Sundays and holy days of obligation. Those who are sick in nursing homes, immunocompromised, of advanced age, or caring for a sick person at home are, as before, exempt from the obligation. I am humbled by so many who have already returned to Mass each Sunday. It is a testament to your faith and desire for the Eucharist. I thank God for that. I also wish to thank our many good priests who look for ways to creatively continue to minister to us in a safe way during the pandemic. After consulting with experts who have confirmed that with proper precautions we can gather together for Mass, I think that this is the proper time for us to come together to worship God. I know that for many, the pandemic has been a time of spiritual renewal, a deeper appreciation for Mass, and the desire to receive the Eucharist. I ask you to join with me on June 6th, the Feast of Corpus Christi, to worship God at Mass, hear his word in the Scriptures, and be nourished with the bread of life, the body and blood of the Lord. Wishing all of you God's blessings. I am Most Reverend J. Douglas Desatel, Bishop of Lafayette. Now it's my turn. I can't count the number of times people have told me no one cares if you say that Mass is a sin. Maybe so, but I am obliged to speak the truth. And the truth is that, starting June 6th, missing Mass on purpose without a legitimate excuse is considered a mortal sin. Like every other mortal sin, you need to go to confession before you can receive communion again. Now that that's out of the way, I get why people say no one cares about that. We've got something of a PR problem, where it looks like all the Catholic Church cares about is shaming people, controlling them, and pestering them for money. Too much emphasis on do this or go to hell is not terribly persuasive anymore. So other than being a sin to miss, why go to Mass? What does this have to do with the love I preached about last week? Or the joy we've been talking about since Easter? Well, everything. God mounts his throne to shouts of joy, a blare of trumpets for the Lord. Today we celebrate Jesus Christ's ascension into heaven for the first time since the beginning of time itself. A human nature, a human body and soul enters into heaven. The Son of God used to only be God. But then he became a human baby. And that baby grew up, did miracles, got arrested, and then executed on the cross. And that man who was also God then rose from the dead. And after 40 days, he took his human nature back to heaven where he began. When he did that, he opened the way for all of us, raising us beyond our limits to eternal joy. But do you have eternal joy right now? quite. Jesus led the way. He began the process. What we have to do is follow, a little at a time, to make our human nature like his. How? By dragging it into heaven, often with great resistance, as we all know. As St. Paul puts it, we work at it until we attain to the unity of faith and knowledge of the Son of God, to the extent of the full stature of Christ. The full stature of Christ is to stand in heaven before God himself in perfect peace, joy, and love. But what is love? We must never stop reminding ourselves that this word is so often misused. What is love? It is to will, to choose the good of the other without worrying about how it benefits myself. Love is changing a child's diaper. It's facing an hour-long commute through traffic to work each day to earn a living for your family. It is giving away hard-earned money to someone struggling to make their rent. It is choosing to forgive. Love has lots of emotional and psychological rewards, but often enough, love is work. If it's real love, the work doesn't seem so hard. The sacrifice almost comes easily. You might complain about the first few diapers or trips to work, but if you remember why, it can open the way to joy, to becoming less selfish, more generous. What does it mean to love God, then? God needs nothing from us, so how do we do what's good for him? Well, the same way that you would do something good for your wife after you've taken care of everything else. You do something that delights her, something extra that isn't required just to make her a little happier just because. And sometimes that extra thing is hard or boring. You lose motivation halfway through, but push through anyway. And they delight in it. So it is with God. God doesn't need you to come to Mass. He's perfectly content and happy without your presence, just as he was before any of us existed. But he does delight in you when you come. The one thing that delights the Father the most is his Son. And when he sees his Son in you, in your imitation of him, he delights in that. When Jesus Christ ascended into heaven, he brought the gift of his own humanity to his Father, the gift of his obedience, the gift of his love for us. When we imitate Jesus in any way, we echo this gift to the Father. Loving our neighbor and proclaiming the gospel are key parts of this. As Jesus makes clear, go into the whole world, proclaim the gospel to every creature. But so is going to Mass. Why? Because Mass is a participation in what Jesus does today. Jesus enters the sanctuary of heaven to offer his humanity to the Father. When we celebrate Mass, we make Jesus present on the altar to offer him body, blood, soul, and divinity, plus us, to the Father. But I don't get anything out of it. I don't feel fed by it. It's boring. The Mass is a liturgy. And the word liturgy comes from the Greek word that means the work of the people. The work. Not their entertainment or comfort. Their work. Church is not like a concert or a restaurant where if they provide good enough service, you patronize them. No. Is an opportunity to carry out a responsibility that we have. You love your spouse, so you spend hours shopping, preparing, cooking, and then serving them a meal. And this can become boring and tedious at times, but if you love enough to push through, you bring delight to your loved ones, or at the very least, nourishment, and it becomes rewarding back to you. Approach the Mass the same way. Don't come because we threaten you. That's not what we're doing. Come because God loves you and you want to love him back. Come to offer him your time and energy, to delight him with the gift of your presence and attention, your voice, and with the pains and trials and petitions that you place before the altar during the offertory. Come to help us prepare and then share in the meal that delights him the most, the very body and blood of his Son, given to you so you can become like Jesus. If you come to Mass to get something, you will often leave unsatisfied. But if you come to give something, you will succeed every time. Continue to give, to show up, to put in the time simply because you love, and love means a commitment, and then you will know the reward. Come to give worship to God the way he asks you, and then receive back his own body and blood, so that you can go forth to proclaim the good news of the work Jesus has done for us on the cross, the work of love. And by going to Mass, we get to enter into that and make it present here and now, crossing the gap of time and space. If there is anything worth doing, anything worth loving, surely it is going to a place where you can offer love's own love back to him.